What is up, everybody? It is a beautiful Thursday afternoon. Go ahead and give this this stream a like, a share. Let's get some people on here, and we got some fun stuff to talk about today. So we got a few goals for the day. One is to answer all your questions, whatever questions you guys have about. We're going to be particularly talking about the video that hopefully most of you have seen by now with the new BLINC Bluetooth integrated control system, but also going to be answering whatever other questions you guys have. So throw your questions up there in the comments section and we will get to them shortly. The other goal we have for today is to not get kicked off of YouTube, which has happened multiple times now, and we think we've figured out what is triggering it, and so we're going to try to stay live on YouTube the whole time. So hopefully that works out. Now let me check something real quick, see if this is working. It is not. Brandon, gonna need your did you turn off Brandon, did you turn off the second there it is. Okay. So in just a few minutes here, we're going to start talking about the Bluetooth FCU. We're going to walk through the whole thing, show you guys how it all works, and we'll go from there. Let's see what comments we got so far, questions we got so far. Juan says first. Juan messaged me and told me he was not going to be able to get on today, so that's a bummer. We're all going to miss Juan. Little Bush Airsoft says Gen 12 shotgun. That doesn't seem like a question to me, but if you've got a question about it, throw it up there. Let's see. The anticipation. We had fun with this one. Did the little teaser and all that kind of stuff. Howard asks, what's the beer of choice today? We kept it simple today, and we got a good old-fashioned Guinness. It says best enjoyed poured into a glass, but I don't have a glass, so we're drinking it out of the can. Cheers, everybody. In the Wolverine Airsoft koozie. There we go. Get you some. Okay. Let's see what questions we got. Should I get the Gen 12 shotgun or the MTW 308? Well, that is like totally opposite ends of the spectrum. The shotgun is not a ranged weapon. It is a true shotgun. It's very effective out to, about 25, 30 yards. From about 10 to 25 or 30 yards, it's very effective. Past that, it's kind of a crapshoot whether you're going to hit what you're aiming at. BBs will go, but they're not going to be, holding a tight target. So let's see. That's a question about tracers. We'll get to that. Okay, so let's jump into this a little bit from a little bit of sort of background here, because I'm going to assume that everybody on the stream here follows fairly closely some of the stuff we've been doing. So I want to give you guys a little bit of insight into what you can kind of expect in terms of some of the new technology blocks that we have announced. So the first half of this year, we were heavily focused on finishing up the development and now towards the release of the three new technology blocks we were working on: the new engine, the XTS, Inferno XTS, the recoil system, Quake MTW, and the Bluetooth FCU, the BLINC system. Now, our plan is that the way we will roll these out, and probably the way we're going to plan to, as long as this goes well, we'll check how it works, but as long as it goes well, the plan is with new technology blocks like this that are part of the overall MTW ecosystem or other similar things like that. Generally, what we will do is we will roll them out on one particular SKU first. In the case of the recoil and XTS, that was the Fossil Dig 1, but it doesn't have to be a limited edition release. It just may be a particular SKU. Now, the reason for that is that one of the advantages we have is we not only build our own platforms, but we actually install all of our systems on guns at scale. We do, full-scale production, so we're building guns with these engines and these different systems every day, every single day. So we get a lot of insight into a lot of different things from a continuous improvement standpoint. So when we roll out a new technology block, we're going to do it on a particular SKU first. That's the plan. And that lets us actually build a decent number in guns. If we run into any minor issues that didn't show up during the development phase, we can fix those things before we start shipping out aftermarket and people start finding those themselves. So that's the first step, is going to be launch on a very specific SKU that we pick for that purpose. The next phase generally will be the aftermarket release. Or it might happen in some cases at very quickly. Sometimes it'll be a little bit longer after the initial release of the first SKU. And then the complete rollout and integration into the product, all of the different product lines, MTW product lines, the article product lines, with like launching new guns with, somebody asked about when we're going to get I don't remember, a billet with a recoil stock. Those new SKUs with the new technology blocks will come, but they are going to be later in the process. So just so we're kind of clear on where we're going. There's a lot of different SKUs that we could do, a lot of different variations of platform and technology and stuff like that. And that takes time to actually get rolled out, both in production and in distribution. So hopefully that gives you guys a little clearer roadmap of sort of where we're going with this stuff. And this is the last of the three technology blocks that we were really working on right now with XTS, the recoil stock, and the Bluetooth FCUs. They're now all two are finished development, and the Bluetooth FCU, technically, we don't say it's finished development until we've started shipping. So, but it's in the final stages, getting ready to go. All right. Any questions about that? You can throw them up there, but hopefully, again, I just want to, I assume that most people that are on this stream are, more committed followers of the brand. So I want to kind of give you guys some insight into the background as far as how we try to roll out the new technologies. What's going to be the price for the new FCU? All right, I will tell you that in just a few minutes. You're gonna have to hold on for a second. Let me see. Is the tracer the same size and shape as the Acetec Bifrost tracer? Not only is it the same size and shape, it works with the Bifrost tracer. Now it can also work with some of the Bluetooth capable Acetec chronos. If you don't need to have the chrono on the gun and you don't care about the tracer, but you still want the integrated features for tuning and all, you can use one of the Acetec standalone tracers or chronos that is Bluetooth capable. Let's see. Should I get the gentle? That was already asked. Dion says, "What's up? How's it going, Dion?" Ironic that you release a Bluetooth FCU the day my girl is arriving. Sorry. We have no control or even way to know that. The Bluetooth trigger board with optical fire selector, it is with a cool twist. So we'll show you that in a bit. Looking forward to slapping this FCU in my Dig 1. Absolutely. am I able to set the rate of fire for semi only with the new trigger board to prevent happy trigger fingers? I'll have to get back to you on that one. I know we discussed whether we wanted to do something like that, sort of like we do with the shotgun sort of anti-spamming mode. But I don't remember what we decided on that. So, not sure. The FCU will make self-dwell adjustment. Well, we're getting lots of specific questions. So why don't we now jump over, and I'm going to show you guys how this all works. I'm not going to have a gun visible here for being compliant with YouTube rules reason, but suffice it to say, there's an FCU that we're going to be a BLINC FCU that we're going to be connected to. So let's see. Here is the app. I have it here on a tablet, just because it's a little bigger and easier to see. Sorry for a little bit of glare. We tried to minimize it, but just is what it is. So this is the tablet. You can see you don't have any devices. Don't have any devices showing there. But if we see, yeah, we're still turned on. If we add a device and search, I pushed the bolt release on the FCU, and that made that turns the Bluetooth on board. And then we can add this. It's going to ask me to switch from semi to auto to confirm that I actually have physical possession of the gun. And now we're connected. Okay. If we want to connect tracer, it's going to similarly ask me to press the power buttons to perform the pairing. There we go. So just like that, we are paired to both the FCU and the tracer. Now, the way the app is designed, all of the actual functions, nothing really happens if you click on the tracer. All the functions are inside the FCU. So this is the home screen. Again, those of you that have been around the brand for a while know that our design philosophy is, we actually have a sort of a tagline for it. It's that performance shouldn't be complicated. The goal with this, the design goal with this whole interface from the hardware to the software was to be user oriented. We want it to be designed around how people are actually going to use it to make your life easier so you can play more airsoft and not have, fiddly things that don't work right. So you can see in one simple screen, all of your main functions are there. Just going to kind of go through it. You have your semi-auto selector position settings here. You have your auto selector position settings over here. You can have separate rates of fire if you want, and separate burst modes. These are simple menus if you want to change from full auto to 3-round burst, and you want to change from 21. You can either go up and down with the little arrows, or you can type in whatever you want. We want to fire at 15 rounds per second. We say, okay, and then we can apply. Board beeped, and now we have semi 3-round burst. Hopefully you guys can hear that. 3-round burst at 15 rounds per second. Adjusting the dwell is the same type of thing. It'll give you small increments if you tap plus, or you can just type in a number. Okay. Again, hit apply. There you go. If we go up here towards the top, you can see that you have your battery voltage. That monitors your battery voltage, and the board will actually shut down and protect itself, protect the battery if your battery voltage drops too low. You have your activation and deactivation of the bolt catch. So this is what we've called simple empty mag detection in the past. If you want the empty mag detection to work, but not the bolt release, then you can just turn the bolt release on and off there. All right. So that's all really cool. Very straightforward. Nice clean interface that's easy to understand. If you have any questions as we're going along, go ahead and throw them up there, because we'll try to answer them and such as we go. Oh, let's see. Does this work with a stock Gen 3 billet? Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about some other features. If you hit the drop-down menu there, you'll see we have a few more sort of more advanced settings. And what do we want to talk about first? Let's talk about profiles. Okay, so we don't have any profiles. If you go into profiles, it just says, don't have any profiles saved. You say, okay, cool. Well, how do we save a profile? All we do is hit save on the main page and say test 1. Okay. And now if we go back into profiles, we're going to see test 1. Okay. So if we make a bunch of changes here, we change this to a 9-round burst and rate of fire to whatever that is, 21. We say apply. Now, if we want to go back to where we were to our saved profile, we just go test 1. It will bring it up. You hit apply, and you're right back to your standard the settings we had previously. I will get to how the auto tune works for the dwell here in just a minute. Let's see. Let's go through next thing. So that's profiles. One thing I want to mention here, it's a little fuzzy in the image here, so I apologize, but there's a little 1 right there. One of the things we wanted to do with this is anytime you're adding technology, we all know that technology is great right up until the point that it doesn't work. And then you can get kind of stuck. So we wanted to have a backup plan. Something happens, your phone dies, you're just having connection issues, whatever it is. The boards still have the same live fire tuning firmware on them from the Spartan boards. So you can tune the dwell and the rate of fire and all just like you do on the on a Spartan board. Same thing, works just fine. Now, if you along with that, we had burst modes on this. We have burst modes on the Spartan board, where you can change from 2-round, 5-round. So we took the same idea here, and on the board you have what we're calling, I think we decided to call profile slots. So basically, this 1 here will save a profile. It can either be an actual saved profile or just a combination of settings. You don't have to have actually saved it. And you move through these in the same way that you would move through modes on the Spartan board. You just hold down the trigger for 5 seconds in semi-auto. Okay. The board beeps twice. That tells you that you're now on number 2. You see the number up here changed to 2. This is your second sort of setting slot on the board. And you can see that it changed some of the numbers to what that setting is. Okay, so you can save 5 different settings on the board, basically 5 different profiles, if you will, or on the board. There are 5 different slots. And you can populate them either manually or by uploading saved profiles that you have to the board. But you can always access them without having to have Bluetooth if you want to. So that's what that guy is there. And that's the interaction between the profiles and the profile slots, as we're calling them. See if we've got any questions. What does the rate of fire mean for semi? I have to actually check our documentation on that because we had a discussion and I don't remember what we decided on whether we made it sort of a max. Yeah, no, it's not. Okay. So on semi, it's not, the rate of fire is not doing anything. We did discuss at some point having it act as a max rate of fire setting, so you could use it as anti-spam. But right now, that is not how it's set up. All right. What other questions? Will this board be able to be used on the Dig 1? Yes, it absolutely will. This is how all HBA FCU apps should look like this, simple and easy to understand. That's the goal. Because frankly, I've always preferred just the simple manual programming because it's, it's simple, it's not tedious. You just, there's not a lot of things to go wrong. If we were going to do a Bluetooth app, it had to fit within the design philosophy of simplifying performance. It had to be something that was intuitive and easy to understand, that enhanced your experience of the game and didn't become a distraction. So let's see, any other questions? How will pairing work with the MTW308 since it does not have the ability to switch into auto? That is a really good question that I don't know the answer to off the top of my head. Somebody else was the technical lead on this project, so I'll have to ask them that question and we will figure it out. I don't have that answer right off the top of my head. Let's see. How does this affect battery life? The answer is that was also a design specification. The battery life on this is ridiculous. Even actively running Bluetooth. So if you're still connected to Bluetooth, to your phone, it's about 4 days of battery life, which is crazy good for actively connecting to, and that's with an average. Obviously, it's going to depend on the exact specs of your battery, but that's based on a sort of an average. I think that's a 300 milliamp hour battery. If you disconnect the Bluetooth because you're just playing and you don't need it connected, I forget off the top of my head is, maybe Brandon can throw it up in the comments, but it is very, very low energy consumption. And one detail with that is it's not just low energy consumption if you leave the gun and don't use it. The way the gun operates, all of we've always done with this our electronics. The in between every shot, the board immediately starts conserving energy and saving battery. So even if you're actively using the gun, the battery life is still very, very high. Cannot remember off the top of my head. Yeah, so I just can't remember off the top of my head what the spec is on that. Let's see. So yes, this is actually, all of our electronics have a reputation for being very low, very energy efficient and not killing batteries. This is, of all the ones that we've done, this is the, when it's not running Bluetooth, it's the lowest energy consumption of any of our FCUs. And even when it's running Bluetooth, it's still pretty freaking efficient. Let's see. In the future, will there be more advanced setup options available for those that really want to dial in their settings and tinker? Okay, let's talk about some other settings. We go to settings here. You get a handful of other options here. So you can turn the audible beep on the board on and off. Stiction compensation. So this is something that our electronics have always done. We actually, as far as I'm aware, were the first ones that ever had a actual stiction algorithm that automatically adjusts the timing for whether or not the gun has not been fired in a while, because it's just the mechanics of a pneumatic system like that, with rubber seals, any type of rubber seal like that. that it's going to need a little bit more time to start up and fire the first shot if it hasn't been fired in a bit. And we have a built-in algorithm that works really well for that. But this gives you the ability to tweak that algorithm. And if you're having your first shot after the gun's rested for a while, a little bit lower energy, you can tweak the stick shin compensation and turn it up a little bit and mess with that. BB weight integrates with the chrono, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then the selector value. So okay. So you'll see there's the optical selector here has a and you can see this is in select fire and that's in auto. So it's reading 5 or 6 in select or in semi and about 84 in auto. Well, you can tweak the threshold based on your particular board, your particular selector switch, where it switches between the two. So it just makes it much more forgiving for variations in the actual parts that you are using there. So that's a really cool additional sort of setting to play with. I'm talking about device name. So one of the cool things, if we go back to this, if you have a bunch of FCUs, like I know some of you do, have a bunch of different MTWs, this is the default device name. But if we go back in here, we can change the device name and say MTW live from the den. Apply it. And now if we go back, you can say, hey, there's MTW live from the den. And you might have, 3 or 4 different boards or 5 different boards or 10 different boards. I know some of you are crazy like that. And you can keep them straight based on what gun it is that you're talking about. DMR mode. There is DMR mode. DMR says it is right there. And that just puts a 2-second delay between your shots on semi-auto. Let's see. Info. This is your shot counter. So you have a resettable and a lifetime shot counter. Reset it. So yes, you want to reset it. Cool. Okay. Now you can shoot some more and it'll keep track, but there's always a total shot counter. All right. Upgrades. One of the cool things here is that we included the ability to push firmware updates through Bluetooth. So if it's necessary to do any bug fixes or just updates to the firmware to add capability, whatever it is, right? We can do that through Bluetooth. So rather than having to go to a dealer and get your board reflashed, it can all be done through through that. Let's see. Brandon, I think that's the consumption on when it's when it is on Bluetooth. It's 2.7 milliamps at 7.4 volts. It's much, much lower. It's a fraction of a milliamp. It's in the microamp range when it's not connected to Bluetooth. Let's see. Delay of 6 to 7 seconds. Wow. That is a setting that we discussed, but I do not believe is in the initial launch. It's certainly something that if there's enough interest in it, we could push that out in the future as an update through Bluetooth, and then you'd be able to get it. But just it is not. There you go, 0.18 milliamps energy consumption, which doing the math is somewhere around 50 to 60 days of battery life on a 300 milliamp hour battery. Somebody else can do the math real quick, but it's something like that. Yes, it will work on the Gen 12. Some of the other features we haven't talked about yet in terms of the integration with the Chrono, which we'll get to in just a minute, will not exactly work on the Gen 12. But the basic functions will work on the Gen 12 just fine. The range of dwell settings is plenty wide. You can go all the way up to 50 milliseconds, which is way more than you need for anything. So yeah, all good. Phil asks whether in the future Gen 12 flash hider will be available to buy. It's his grew legs. Even if it's not on the website, you can reach out to us, and if possible, we'll try to get one set up for you. Does this mean you can boost the Gen 12 rate of fire? Well, I mean, most of the Gen 12 rate of fire is limited by the fact that it has to run 8 BBs up into the system between each shot. So not in most systems, it's not going to actually make a difference most of the time. Maybe in some configuration. Can you set individual dwell for semi and auto? Not at this time. That is an enforcement concern. And we're going to talk about enforcement and some of the things we're doing here because we're also big on promoting the sport as a whole and accountability and keeping things honest and fun for everybody. It's an enforcement concern if you are able to change the dwell in full auto and run different dwells in full auto, because you could theoretically then chrono with your dwell artificially low, and then, you know, it's not good. So there's some other ways of optimizing the dwell for full auto in terms of efficiency that we're looking at, but they're not included on a first release here. Let's see. We'll talk about contact yoke in a minute. Actually, I need, Brandon, if you could bring me a board and a contact yoke, that would be awesome, so we can talk about that. Christian says, cool app, man. Thank you. It's come a long way since the beginning, hasn't it? As a first HPA gun, would you say the Gen 12 is a good choice? I would not recommend the Gen 12 as your first HPA gun. It's a more specialized role. Unless you know that you want to be a shotgunner, get something more generic. It's more flexible and gives you more options. Why is the wiring harness not a plug-in, but instead soldered to the board, which we all know is going to break? Well, we don't all know it's going to break because we have had exceptionally few of those wiring points, soldered on wiring points that we've been doing for the past 7 years.
Don't have a contact yet.
Production has some. They're working on them.
Okay.
We've had exceptionally few of those break. That has to do with how we have designed the routing of the wiring to relieve strain. But if it was something that we were typically seeing breaking, then we would have a connection there. But realistically, the point of a connector there is not that it's stronger. In fact, often those connectors are a weak point. The point of a connector is if you have a lot of failures on the harness end. Like if this part over here, you have a lot of failures there and you want it to be easily replaceable, that's when you would have a replaceable, have a connector there. And we really have very few of those as well. So it's just not, it's adding failure points without any real benefit. Let's see. Any other questions? 68 days. Jim did the math. Don't take my word on it. Do your own math. But, I don't know that I'm allowed to say anything in particular, but we were waiting on one part for the M-LOK handguards for Gen 12, and we did get that part in yesterday. So hopefully you'll see progress on that soon. I don't know how long exactly, but there is progress on that. One part got delayed in shipping and just took a little longer to get here. Pedro asks about ramping. Now, I'm going to say that I don't know what anybody in airsoft means by ramping, because people have used that term for multiple different things that mean there's not a consistent way that people have used that term in airsoft. It had a consistent meaning in paintball, and it was not a consistent meaning that a feature that I want on our electronics, because it basically hid the fact that you had full auto, and if you pulled the trigger fast enough on semi-auto, it would switch over to full auto. We don't want that. So if you mean something else by ramping, which various people have indicated, then we can talk about it. But I have not seen any consensus. I have heard people use that term to mean a whole bunch of different things, that some of which I couldn't even make out what they were talking about. So if there's a specific feature you want, you can forward it to us, and we'll take it into consideration for future development. Oh, we've got so much to go over, guys. We're never going to get there, but it's all good. I got time today. This one may run a bit, but it's all good. I don't know. What do we want to do next? We want to talk about the physicals on the board, or do we want to talk about the integration with the tracer? What are you guys on? This board is compatible with the Article 3. It could be compatible with any MTW or Article series this board will work with. Would this be available for the future MTW AK? Yes, absolutely. The MTW AK will come with a Bluetooth board that makes all of your wildest dreams come true. There you go. Auto-tune. We haven't talked about auto-tune yet, so that's integration with the Ace Tech side of things. Yes, so you are actually describing ramping, and I have not seen any field or rule set that likes that. And so let's talk about enforcement for just a minute. Okay, so this gets into integration. We'll talk about integration, and we'll use that to port into enforcement. So when you have a tracer on the gun, a Bluetooth capable, like the Bifrost BT here, that has a chrono built in, or you are shooting through a Bluetooth capable Ace Tech chrono, the gun is able to tune the dwell itself. Now, how this is going to work, I can't show you here. I apologize. We're not set up to be able to do that. But basically, it is going to do everything for you. It works like the Spartan tuning, but just it does it all for you. So you'll hold the trigger down, and it'll fire. You hear fire, 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 and it's going to read out all the chrono readings for each one, and then it will pick a dwell setting based on an algorithm that it thinks is the correct dwell setting for your current setup. Now, I'm going to put one caveat here. Our current algorithm is very conservative. Okay, you may look at it, and what you'll end up with is a list of each shot. You know, what the dwell was and what the velocity was. You may find that you look at it and you go, I really, it only dropped off, half a meter per second. I really could go down another step or two. That's fine. You can just tap on the one you want and hit apply. We will mess with various algorithms in the future, but for a first launch algorithm, the target customer for this is somebody that just wants simple convenience. And so the algorithm erring on the side of making sure the gun has enough dwell to fully power the PB means you won't get people confused because the gun's getting low power shots and all that kind of stuff. And as we get feedback from people about what they actually want, then maybe we tweak the algorithm and get a little more aggressive on really trying to get the dwell dial to the absolute perfect number. But it does get you in, it generally gets you pretty freaking close, such that you're getting pretty good efficiency and all that without having to understand anything about what's going on. You can just run it through and it gives you a solid number. So you're right out of the box, ready to get going. Let's see. Joshua said he's agreement with me that he doesn't like the concept of ramping. I don't see a need for it. I don't see a need for it either. You do have to have a chrono either on the gun or a standalone. I don't have one here, but like an Ace-Tech Bluetooth chrono, because it's a closed. This is a patent that we actually filed. It's in process still, but for a version of closed loop control that takes the input from the chronograph and is able to adjust the settings of the gun. So it gives you a closed loop control system to do that. The switch on the board is the same as the Spartan. Anti-spamming mode on semi would be awesome. We'll take it under advisement. Again, we have to, again, in software development terms, I think they use the term minimum viable product. We have to get something out there that has the main features first and test that, and then we'll take input, and I'm sure there will be updates. Again, that's one of the advantages. You can not just update the app, but if firmware updates are needed to enable new app features, you can flash new firmware to your board through the app itself. So there is a great deal of sort of future proofing built in there, but we wanted to get all the core features really in there, and then we'll work on others in the future. Let's see. Okay, so then we were going to talk about let's see. All right, so we were going to talk about enforcement. So all of us know the tale as old as time of airsoft, that somebody thinks somebody's shooting hot. And we also all know that there are people like that, but that for every one person that actually is, shooting hot, there's probably 5 other people that got accused of it. And none of that is, none of that is good for the sport as a whole. It's not fun for anybody, right? Whether you're getting accused of it or you're just having to listen to people accuse other people when people are moaning and complaining. So one of the things we wanted to do with this is to give people tools to be an influence for good, if you will. One of the cool things that this will do. Now, I want to clarify, you do have to stay connected to Bluetooth for this to work. So that's a thing. But if you're playing, again, you get 4 days of connectivity, more or less, on Bluetooth. So it's not like that's a problem if you're playing a day or two game, or certainly not if you're playing for a few hours at the local CQB field. So we have 2 things here. One is tournament lock. And what the tournament lock does, sorry, for the I'm getting mixed up, guys. I apologize. The tournament lock, you don't have to stay connected to Bluetooth. If we lock it and we disconnect from Bluetooth, we unplug the board, whatever we do, a flag is set on the hardware in the board that says that ties to a timestamp. So when we plug it back in, it's going to say it's still going to know whether it's been unlocked or not. It will also know whether you changed through the whether you changed settings through the Spartan programming, the trigger programming. It won't let, it'll kick out the tournament lock on that as well. But it's a very simple mechanism here. It shows up a red dial and says no change to electronic settings since this timestamp, right? So this is just the simplest, easiest possible to understand tournament lock. It says, whatever else has happened, they haven't messed with the controls on this board since this time. Okay. And then we can disconnect it. And again, if you unplug the battery, doesn't matter. So if your battery dies, whatever, not a big deal. You can just plug it back in and you'll still be tournament locked. Let's see. On all of the, he says, there a way to lock anyone else from connecting to your setup with the Gorilla Unit or Ace Tech products. Anyone can connect if they have the app and are close enough. Multiple things on that. One, you have to have physical access to the gun in order to actually connect. It'll show up on anybody's phone, but they won't actually be able to connect to it unless they have physical access to the gun. Two, that you have to, the dwell is 2 to 50 milliseconds, correct. Sorry, what was I saying? Oh, the Bluetooth has to be turned on. So if you turn the Bluetooth on, they can't, it's not broadcasting all the time, so they can't see it unless you're broadcasting. And three, if it's already connected to your phone, they won't be able to connect to it. Okay, but what about being a good guy and making the game better for everybody? One of the things that we wanted to add here, if you're running a chrono on gun, you have the option to do random sampling. And all this is going to do is every so often as you're playing, it's going to just record a chronograph reading. You're going to be shooting, and then it's going to take one reading and store it. And it's going to have a timestamp and what the reading was. And then it's like an evolution of spot checking, right? You're spot checking yourself. And the goal being that you can be part of the solution and not part of the problem, right? You want to play fair, you want everybody to have a good time, and you want these stupid arguments to stop about, somebody's shooting too hot or somebody's, whatever. You mean, look, here's all the random samples, the 30 random samples from the last 2 hours we've been playing, and they're all within chrono limits. So really nice feature there. Again, just trying to be part of moving the industry forward and helping, because it's not good for the industry if it's not good for the game if people are just, everybody's arguing and having stupid fights about whatever. Okay, so I had a couple questions. What about setting for the barrel length to help set the dwell? So you can save various profiles, and we talked about that earlier. You can save profiles with different dwell settings for different barrel lengths if you want. There's not really a way the electronics, other than by running the auto tune, which you can run the auto tune if you switch barrels, and it takes 15 seconds. But it can't automatically. I mean, we could put math in there, but it wouldn't consistently work in terms of like changing the dwell for different barrel lengths. There's just too many variables there that you can't directly control. Does the auto dwell setup care about BB weight, or does it just check for consistency? All it's checking for is consistency. That's all it needs to know, is that your velocity, it's looking for the point where the velocity starts to drop off, and then saying, okay, that's where the dwell needs to be. So other integration with the chrono or tracer, if you have this connected, and I don't know whether maybe I can demonstrate this, maybe I can't, I don't know. My kingdom for a BB. Let's see what happens. Nope. Well, oh, well, there you go. Okay, so it's working. Settings, wrong thing. Tracer. So I'm going to turn on the chronograph. And it says, when chronograph is enabled, tracer and flamer will be disabled. Confirm. Cool. And now, hey, look at that. I dropped it through it 5 meters per second. You can adjust feet per second, meters per second. You can read joules based on, and it's just going to read 0 because the number is so small, based on, but again, keep in mind that joule setting, if you go with that, it's going to calculate based on the BB weight you tell it. So if you tell it you're running 2/8, say, okay, it's going to calculate a joule setting based on, come on. So, so that's how that works. Bolt catch can be off. Yes, that's this button here. Cool. So a valid question. How does the chrono stamp work if the field requires you to chrono with one weight, but you play with a much higher weight? The chrono information wouldn't be accurate, right? Or there's a conversion. There's, it's not a, it's not a magic wand. You're going to still have to understand that, yes, if you're switching to higher BBs, your numbers are all going to be reading lower. You can calculate that in terms of joules. And yes, again, any system that you want, you can find a way to cheat. It's easy. It's the easiest thing in the world to cheat with an AEG, whatever. You just break the seal at the hop up and then, you're good to go. This is not a, but there is more accountability here. If the field wants to check the BBs in your mags and make sure you're using the BB weight you're saying you are based on what the chronograph reading is, that's fine. You can check that, but it just gives you some accountability that says, hey, this is, I'm shooting the same now. This is the same mag I've been using, and I'm shooting the same chrono reading now as I have been the whole day. There's not really any, could you magically switch things back and forth? And sure, there's some way to do it, but it provides some accountability there and some confidence that people are, again, it's proactively seeking to be self-accountable. All right. How does this work when the Acetec built-in chrono tends to read differently? We have tested this fairly extensively. They do tend to vary a little bit, but not extensively. And again, this is not, if your chrono reads a few FPS different, that's not what we're dealing with. The safety issues and people getting, getting really bent out of shape is not because somebody's, 5 FPS over the limit, right? And that's sort of what we're talking about there. If they want to, if the field is uncertain because yours is reading a tiny bit higher and they want to recheck you with the field chrono, they can do that. But again, it's just vastly more accountability than is available with any other system. Let's see if the field requires. Okay, so you guys have been patient. You guys have been very patient. So this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Is what's the price and the offerings here? So we're going to have 2 ways that we sell this. At least starting out, we're trying to, this is a new thing for us. But we have 2 ways we're going to sell it. One includes the combination of the board and, I haven't even talked about the contacts yet. I'll come back to the contacts. Sorry, guys. The one includes the board and the new contact yoke that matches the board and the tracer, the Acetec Bifrost BT tracer, and the other will just be the board and contact yoke. Okay, the board and contact yoke. Well, I should have double checked this before I came in here. I know I'm within $5, but believe MSRP on the board and contact yoke is going to be $155. And the total kit with all three, Dalton's gonna or Brandon's gonna stick up in the chat because I can't remember. Sorry guys, I actually did look at it before I came in here, but I've talked for an hour straight now, and now I can't remember. So Dalton or Brandon will throw it up in the chat, but and I'll call it out once I see it. But while we're waiting, let's talk about contact yokes. So we can maybe do this here. Slide this out of the way. One of the things with the new board is an updated contact yoke interface. Instead of the springs sitting here, you can see there is still a spring right here, and we'll talk about that in a second. There are these gold-plated pogo pin contacts. And right there. And then on the flip side, the contact yoke now has this little PCB with soldered in connections, right? That matches it. The spring that is here is not a contact. That is just to keep the correct tension on the board as it sits in the gun and keep everything in its correct location. So this is just a more refined contact interface. You have a really high quality contact there. Now, one thing I will say you need to know is that these are a matched set. This set is backwards compatible with any MTW or article, but you can't match these pins to our current contact yoke, and you can't match this contact yoke to the current board contacts. So that's the contact there. So nice little additional update detail there. So the kits will include both the board and the new contact yoke right there. Let's see, any of the questions. Juan wants to know. Oh, Juan's on. How's it going, Juan? We ran long enough that you were able to make it. Yeah, I finally answered the first question that was asked. It took me long enough. Sorry. When will it come out in the EU? We our estimated start shipping date. I think I'm allowed to tell you this. Guys, am I allowed to tell the estimated start shipping date? Hold 1 second. And am I allowed to tell the date that orders will open? That's pretty soon. I'm going to say I'm allowed to say that. Pre-orders will open at dealers sometime next week. So stay tuned for that. Start shipment date, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to tell you yet. So hold tight. We'll see. But it is, we have a partial shipment in that we use to approve the first batch of production parts, but we don't have a full. The full batch is still on its way from the company that does the boards to get those to actually start shipping. We're not going to start until pre-order date of the 26th. That is correct. The start ship date, again, I'm not sure that we've actually decided to publish that just yet, but it is not super far out, but it is not going to start shipping in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'll tell you that. Any reason anyone would want advanced electronics over the new Bluetooth? There's more flexibility in terms of the some people like the external FCU. Some people hate Bluetooth and don't want to mess with it, and they'd rather just have sorry, trying to figure answers for you guys. They'd rather just have, closed electronics that, so it's just a preference thing. Will it become the new norm? I'm told I'm not allowed to tell you the start ship date yet. Will it become the new norm? That probably depends on feedback from customers and what, how well people like it. So, we'll see. We're really excited about it. Like I said, it's been in the works for quite a while. Really enjoyed working with Ace Tech to develop the board and the integrated technology that really does tie all those pieces together and improve the sort of user experience and interface. Juan's wife's cousin's nephew's best friend said it was going to cost free.99 cents. So you might want to check your sources, Juan. Will it ever be? Brandon did put the prices up. He put the prices up and said 150 and 260. I think that's actually MAP, not MSRP. Typically, MSRP is just a touch over MAP. But it's going to be right in that range. 260 with the tray included with the tracer, and 150 with the board and the contact yoke combo. Let's see. Will it ever be possible to use a Quake stock with the Gen 12? I don't know yet. The timing of that was such that by time we knew we were going to launch we knew we were going to move forward with the recoil stock. We had already finished the design of the Havoc engine. In theory, it should be possible, I think, but we couldn't hold up developing, or finishing and launching the Havoc engine to test that and develop that when the recoil stock was not nearly as far along in development. So the answer is maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. But in theory, there's a way to make it work, but it probably would require some changes to some different parts. It would require some changes to at least the valve housing on the Havoc engine to route air to the recoil stock. Holy cow, guys. Y'all been running me ragged. I got a question earlier. I got a question earlier about the standalone recoil kits. That falls into, I can't give you hard dates yet, but I will, it falls into what I said previously as far as the strategy being to roll out the new technology so that we can proof it on one particular SKU and then do aftermarket and then start working on some different other integrated gun SKUs. So the next thing you see will probably be, in terms of recoil, will probably be aftermarket kits. And that is actively moving forward. Those parts are, in production. So it's not, I can't give you a date yet. We haven't announced that, and there's still some questions on the exact date. But it is moving forward. So I take it no Reaper. Sorry. Sorry, question. I take it I missed a question. Jay Wynn. Another question. Are there any plans for new versions of Reaper? Not at this time. And certainly nothing that's far enough along that I can discuss. Yes, you can firmware. So app updates would be done through the App Store, like any other app update. And then firmware updates would be done through the app. But you can do firmware updates on your board through the app as they become available. Had some concern about somebody saying, well, I don't want to, what if I don't want to update to newer firmware? Well, actually, I don't want to say anything on that because I don't know. I'm not smart enough in that area to have all the details yet. So I won't say anything on that until I ask a question and make sure I'm not saying the wrong thing. Let's see. I don't have an exact release date yet on this. We did announce the pre-orders at dealers will be open on the 26th. Orders on our website will be after that. I'm not going to give you the date just yet, but dealers will get to receive pre-orders first. Try to take good care of our dealers like that. It will be coming to the EU as soon as it comes anywhere. We're going to start shipping globally when we start shipping. So, not at any planned integration with the gate display. Not at this time. We are. How to say this? We have our own design philosophy and ecosystem that we are working on when it comes to app development that is not necessarily consistent with how everybody else chooses to do their products. We have a round counter, etc., built in. Shot counter. You have a resettable shot counter that I reset earlier, and the total shot counter as well. So, if that's the question, that we have that there. So, any other questions before we wrap up here, guys? It has been a happening past hour and 10 minutes. All right. Do I want to answer that question? Sure, I'll answer that question. Are there preloaded tuning setups for different length guns for people that aren't as tech savvy with tuning? The answer is that we are attempting to solve that same problem a different way by doing the auto tuning, and I would argue a much, much better way. The problem with preloaded settings is that hardware is not consistent in terms of what exactly it wants. Your barrel, a 385 millimeter barrel that is a tight bore is going to want slightly different settings than one that is a wide bore. One engine will want slightly different dwell settings, sometimes to a non-trivial level, than another engine. Even the same engine with a different valve, the dynamics of that valve can be a little bit different and need different dwell settings. It's far better to provide an easy way for people to tune to whatever their system is, that they don't need to understand or have technical knowledge of what it's doing. They just have to run through the tuner and it does it for them. That's a far better solution than relying on, well, so-and-so on the internet is running a similar setup and said he had to run these settings. It's just not a reliable way to get results. I mean, it doesn't usually get you in the right ballpark. But there's no guarantee that because somebody else with, the same or a very similar setup ran the same thing that they, that you're going to end up with the same results. Sure, but the auto tune can be perfect with a stock MTW barrel. I'm afraid I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. Is there a release on the MTW Quake stock? I am not announcing a date on that yet. It is actively moving forward, and aftermarket kits will probably be the next thing you see on the MTW Quake stock. And it will be, I promise it won't be that long, but we got to do, again, we're at the end of the day, we're still a small company that for our size does an absolutely absurd amount of product development. So we have to stagger things. Frankly, one of the reasons that we are showing this before we're launching the aftermarket Quake stocks is because we wanted people to see the options they were going to have before we started selling them. Hopefully that makes sense. We didn't want somebody that, they had enough money to, do one upgrade, and they chose to get the Quake stock, and then Bluetooth came out and they're like, oh man, I really wish I would have gotten that instead, or vice versa if we did it in the other order. We wanted both to be visible to people so they could decide how they want to, what they want to do to their MTWs and how they want to spend their money on that. So trying to take care of customers in that way. That does mean we probably delayed getting the aftermarket Quake stocks out a little longer than we had to, just so that we could get this done. But, listen, I promise you, I'm as eager as anybody to start selling them. This has been, all these projects are months and months to years of work and spending money on development before we can start selling them. So I'm eager to get them out too. But I want to, I do want, we're trying to take care of customers and make sure everybody knows. I don't know what you're saying. Connection joke problem, as if that's a term that I should know. I have no idea what you're talking about. Let's see. You making? No, you missed my point. So you said, the MTW with already the board out of the box, it will have the perfect setting because you guys know exactly what type of barrel and length you have inside. But you're missing my point. Even gun to gun with exactly the same barrel, there are variables within the engines themselves. Each engine is a mechanical system. The response time, both opening and closing, and it can be on either end of a valve and an engine, is going to be slightly different from one gun to the next. So you might have one gun that the dwell is optimally tuned at 5,500 microseconds, and another gun that on paper is exactly the same, that the optimal dwell tuning is 7,000 microseconds. That is entirely possible. And also from the factory, we don't know what pressure you're going to run it at. And even if we knew what pressure you thought you were going to run it at, your regulator gauge will not match the calibrated regulator gauge that we test everything on, because your regulator gauge isn't calibrated. And so it's going to be off by 5 or 10 PSI, one direction or the other. So it's just not we can set up an approximate tuning for a common setup, and that is typically what we have tried to do. Freezing up a little bit. Yeah, so that's the point of the auto tune, is that it will account for all those minor variations and it will set it the way that you want. Yeah, so that's the approach we're taking. It's a closed loop control system. So, and this is, if you study control systems, this is the fundamental advantage of an open loop control system versus a closed loop control system. An open loop control system just knows in theory how the system that it's controlling is supposed to work, if that makes sense. It knows the theoretical numbers that system, that it's supposed to drive a car from point A to point B, and in theory that means it should do this, but it gets no information on the reality of the situation. And so a quarter mile down the road, it drives off the road and crashes into somebody's house. A closed loop control system knows the parameters of the system that it's trying to, the theoretical parameters of the system it's trying to control. But then it also has the ability to measure the actual result and make minor adjustments to match what it's doing to the results that it's reading. All right, am I due for another Guinness? I kind of feel like it. I've been talking for basically an hour and 20 minutes straight at this point. So, all right. Any questions before we wrap up, guys? Last chance before I hit end live stream. Hopefully we managed to stay on YouTube the whole time. I haven't heard that we got kicked off. I don't know. But I really appreciate everybody getting on and engaging today. Hopefully that answers a bunch of questions. Well, I can't show you because apparently we had a sync issue with the close-up camera, but go back and watch the earlier in the video, and it shows how the chrono works. And I don't know what connector joke problem solve. I don't know what you're talking about, but I sorry, I'm totally in the dark here. Sorry. Yeah, if you have a question, you can contact tech support and we'll try to help answer whatever your question is there. But really do appreciate everybody getting on today. Really looking forward to getting these out to you guys. It's a product I'm super pumped for that just simplifies how you interact with your gun. And again, hopefully improves the sport as a whole going forward. We really want to be part of solving problems and improving the community and the environment of the sport as a whole. So thanks for all the input and the questions. We do in all seriousness. In all seriousness, I take very seriously suggestions and questions and requests for features. Doesn't mean I can always do them. But we pay a great deal of attention to those things. And we have implemented dozens, if not hundreds, of suggestions over the years from customers that wanted this or wanted that. If there's enough interest, we would do a limited run of Dig 1 rails in 7 and 14 inch. We're going to have to address the understanding of what Dig 1 is and all that, and the Fossil series in another live from the den, because I can't get into that today. But there's not really a way for us to do Dig 1 rails, if that makes sense. Maybe you mean a matching green rail, and maybe you mean a matching green rail with a the Fossil logo on it. I'm not sure, but we need to talk about the Fossil branding and what that is intended to be at a future live from the den. But we're an hour and 20 minutes in, and I'm sure some people are tired of hearing me rasp along here as my voice starts to die. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time.